Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. It's that time again. It's Tuesday-ish, and I want you to play some Magic. Midweek Magic this week is all about Standard Brawl, and that's exactly what we are going to do around here. We are going to brawl for 2 free rare or better ICRs. And to do it, we're going to start with a baseline of our green-white Lifeline deck. And what you're looking at here is actually the alpha version that they originally announced as part of the preview. There were some changes made to the final deck list, not all of which are reflected here. But as you can see, most of this deck is all about synergizing with Lifegain. There are a few exceptions. There's some cards in here that I don't entirely understand. I am not a big fan of Minimus Containment, for instance. I think Lurking Roper can be a little underpowered and a bit conditional, even in a deck that's leaning towards fulfilling that condition. Still not a card I entirely love. Attendant Healer, I don't think this actually made the final list. So we won't bother talking about that. Icing Death is a fantastic card. I'm not sure it goes in this deck, but there it is. And then you have Drizzt, who is a fantastic card in his own right, but doesn't necessarily synergize with what we got going on here. And probably a card that deserves a Brawl deck all his own. But as you can see, there is definitely a good basis here, and we also know that our mono white deck is built very strongly on a Lifegain matters, so there is a lot of potential here to create a Brawl deck. So stay tuned, we're going to go through it step by step and create a deck together, not only to make this list, but to help you learn how to do this with your own collection. But before we get into all that, allow me to take a moment. We made it to our first spoken goal, folks. We've hit 100 subs on the channel, and I think nothing celebrates a milestone like talking about the next goal. And I read somewhere in educating myself about YouTube that the time it takes you to go from 0 to 100 subs is the same amount of time that it will take you to go from 100 to 1,000. So we're about a year into, well, frankly, taking the channel seriously at any level. So my next goal is to hit 1,000 subs within the year. By September 2022. And I know I can't do it without you. You see, we're not one of those huge channels out there. Around here, you matter. And that's why I want to take this moment and say thank you to all the folks you see here on your screen who not only supported us and helped us get to this goal of 100 subs, but have also chosen to make their subscription public. You see, what a lot of you don't realize is that the YouTube algorithm doesn't really support channels like this. For whatever reason, they don't push content designed for new players, free-to-play players, or budget players. And I would like to reteach the algorithm. I would like to teach them that this content is relevant and that our audience and our community matters. And while I know I can't do that, I think we can. So with that in mind, in addition to the usual like, comment, and subscribe that I'm sure you hear all the time from YouTube channels, there's 2 special things I would like you to do in order to help us grow the channel. The first off is, if you are finding value in this content, share it out to your social media platforms so that your friends, family, colleagues, whatever, can find that same value in what we're doing here. And secondly, let me ask you to allow the video to play all the way to the end. Because if you just click into the video, grab the deck list, and then click back out,
you might be giving YouTube the impression that you didn't like the video, and then it's less likely to push it out. So do me the favor, push it out to your social media, watch it to the end, and let's send a positive message for our budget community. Now, what were we talking about? Oh, yeah, right.
All right, guys and gals, let's make a brawl deck. What I have done here so far is added a single copy of all of our new player experience cards in the green and white categories for us. I have named Trelasarra as our commander. Let's see here. I went with a snow package for our basic lands because green has some really nice snow stuff. Not sure that we're going to have enough to really justify that. It may end up getting changed back. Also running the snow dual land that comes into play tapped at common level. Of course, our free copy of the appropriate pathway. Also running Command Tower. If you have not spent a wild card on this to support your brawl play, now is the time to do it. It is a fantastic card that will literally fit in all of your brawl decks for both standard and historic. The one card fits them all because it makes whatever color your commander happens to be. Similarly is Arcane Signet. This is another common that produces mana according to your commander's colors. So one single copy is all you need for all your brawl and commander needs for many years to come. Wizards has signaled that these are going to be evergreen cards, so make the investment now and just go ahead and start getting the mileage on that. The last change I've made to the mana base here is including a single copy of Evolving Wilds because we can't have more than one in Brawl. We do have a few cards out there that trigger on landfall, and it could be worthwhile for that to have one spectacular turn or just to thin our deck a little bit and go grab a basic land. The next thing I have done here is eliminated any cards that are really only good if you have multiples. An example would be something like Charmed Stray. But folks, this is one of those times where we are going to talk about white Lifegain and building a deck around it because Trelasarra likes that concept. So Charmed Stray being a 1/1 lifelink for 1 is good enough even if you never have a second copy in the deck. So we did keep that. There was a green card that I want to say it's a 3/3 for 4, but it gets +1/+1 counters based on how many other copies of it you have in play. It's just not quite good enough unless you have the possibility of multiples, so went ahead and cut that. Next up, let's talk about some of the themes that we will see in these cards. And the first one, of course, is Venture. And we only have 4 cards that venture into the dungeon. So the question is this worth including? As an overall mechanic, I would say no. Obviously, this is not going to be a venture deck. But if you take a Ranger Hawk, for example, a 1/1 flyer for 1 is good enough. Even if you never use the onboard ability to get something like an Incidental Scry, a 1/1 flyer for 1 is good enough. We're going to keep it. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you have Cloister Gargoyle, a 0/4 for 3 that is really only good once you have completed the dungeon. And at this level, odds are we are never going to complete a dungeon. So that is a cut. Nadar Selfless Paladin is a 3/3 Vigilance for 3, so on rate right off the bat. When it ETBs or attacks, you venture. So those incidental scries or treasure tokens or things like that are just gravy because a 3/3 Vigilance for 3 is good enough. If by some crazy stretch of the imagination we're able to stick Nadar long enough to complete a dungeon, it pumps the rest of our team as a lord. Pretty nice. Last scenario we're probably not getting to, but it could happen. Veteran Dungeoneer is a 4-mana 3/4, and when it comes into play, you venture into the dungeon. So the question here is a 3/4 for 4 with something like an Incidental Scry good enough? My guess is with all the other cards that we have going on, it probably isn't. Because at the moment, we need to cut 70 cards from this deck, and Veteran Dungeoneer is just not good enough to make the cut. So that is having looked at the venture mechanic. And one of the themes from green that we're going to see a lot is the +1/+1 counter. So let's take a look at that and check out these individual cards and see if this stuff is worth it. We've already talked about Charm Stray is good enough. It's on theme. So is Cleric class. Although I don't think we will ever activate level 3, but we do kind of want to get level 2 online if at all possible. Stormbinder's Familiar. Whenever one or more cards are put into an exile during your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on the Familiar. Triggers only once per turn. Not good enough, guys. Dungeon Delver from our mono-colored collection that's evergreen. A 1/1 for 1 is nothing special. A 4-mana mana sink to put a +1 counter on something. This is not good enough, guys. Stony Strength, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Untap that creature. It's a decent combat trick if we were going mono green and didn't have 2 colors worth of cuts to consider. This would probably be in consideration. But since we do have all of our white cards to consider, this one is not going to make the cut. Let's take a look here at Ochre Jelly. When it enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters, yeah, I think this is good enough. It's not really on theme for us, but it is a powerful rare. So right now I think that is going to make the cut. Fearless Fledgling. It's a +1 counter theme. It's a landfall theme. Honestly, I gotta say, I don't think this is gonna make the cut. We're gonna go ahead and cut that. Hollow Priest is an absolute windmill slam for this deck. Anytime life matters, this is a go-to card. Luminarch Aspirant is a solid rare. It's not really on the Lifegain theme, but we are going to have a little bit +1/+1 counter sub-theme, and I think this card is good enough. Big Play, +2/+2, and Reach. Put a counter on it. This is so on the line, but again, because we are running a 2-color deck, I think we can do better. Dragon's Guard Elite, instant or sorcery, Magecraft, +1/+1 counter, double the number of counters. Good card. This is just not the right deck for it. This needs to be in our black-green +1/+1 counters deck, not here. Emergent Sequence, no, not even going to go into it. Inscription of Abundance, this is one of those Windmill Slam rares for green, as is Ranger class. If you're playing this color and not playing these 2 cards, I need you to explain to me why. Celestial Unicorn is Hollow Priest 2.0. Even in Brawl, now we get 2 creatures that do this. Oran Reef Ooze is all about the counters. It's powerful, but it's just not on theme. Scale the Heights. This card does everything. It goes right along with Inscription of Abundance and Ranger class. If you're running green and not this card, please send me a comment and let me know why. Lihara Glade Warden, down in the comments on a scale of 1 to infinity, let me know how bad I butchered the pronunciation of Lihara. It's Changeling. It's a 3/3. It's all about +1/+1 counters. We are going to say no today. Struggle is a fight spell with +1/+1 counters. It foretells that's a solid maybe here. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little on the fence there. We are going to need some removal, and this might be what does it for us. Ramping and +1 counters. This deck is not really trying to ramp, so we are going to say no there. Froghemoth, Trample, Haste, Exile stuff, puts +1 counters on it and gains life. So I think this rare is good enough and versatile enough and fits our theme just enough to be worthwhile. Drizzt, a 3/3 for 5 that also puts another 4 power with Trample on the board. This is just a really solid rare. I think it fits into the spectrum very nicely. This could be a general in and of itself and something we no doubt will look at later on in the season when we are a little bit budget minded, although this card is part of our new player experience. So all these times where we have talked about maybe getting rid of +1/+1 counter theme things, if you were playing Drizzt, you'd want to steer into that and steer out of the Lifegain. So a solid addition and a potential deck all its own. So there is our +1/+1 counters theme, and let's take a look at some other things here. Alright, so next up I want to take a look at all of our additions coming from the mono-colored new player experience, because there are a lot of vanilla cards, meaning they don't really come with any extra punch and sometimes are a little overcosted. Like here's one that jumps out at me right off the bat, the Gigantosaur. Let's face it, everyone wants to play a super cool 10/10 dinosaur. But it's 5 green mana to pull that off, and outside of a mono green deck, that's going to be really hard to do on curve. That means you're basically not playing any white spells the first 5 turns to play this on curve. So that's an easy cut. Charmstray we've talked about. Sanctuary Cat is the living definition of vanilla. We will see you later. Tactical Advantage is somewhat of a combat trick, and I will allow it to make the cut for the moment. Fencing Ace, a 1/1 double strike for 2, is just going to get outclassed. Hollow Priest, we have talked about. Orator is another one of those fantastic Lifegain Matters cards that we are going to be running. Knight's Pledge, no thank you. Inquisitor, no. Pacifism is a yes. Shrine Keeper is a hell no. Feral Roar, I think we're going to have better combat tricks here than a sorcery speed +4/+4. Mana Fixing, I don't think we need this card in a 4-color deck. We're not trying to ramp, so even when we have something with over 4 power, I don't think this makes the cut. Rabid Bite is pretty solid baseline removal. I think it makes it right now at the same level Tactical Advantage does. We're going to keep it for the moment. Treetop Warden is a hell no. Woodland Mystic, another ramping card. It's an elf. It doesn't really do much for us. Angel of Vitality, I am going to keep because of the life gain potential. Colossal Majesty is not what we're going for here. Generous Stray, 3 for a 1/2 and a card. I'm going to say no. A 4/2 Trample. This is basically a removal spell on legs. But with everything we've got going on here and the fact that we still have 47 cards to cut, I am going to say no here. War Leader, is this the best thing we could be doing at 4 mana? It's a possibility. This is one of the stronger life gain rares and might be worth keeping. Prized Unicorn is a nice combat trick, but a 2/2 for 4, and if you have any kind of board presence to make this worthwhile, it's going to catch removal immediately. So I am going to go ahead and proactively cut that. World Shaper, we are not trying to mill in this deck and do graveyard tricks, so that is a rare we are cutting. Rumbling Baloth, a 4/4 for 4 vanilla, no thank you, not what we're in the mood for. Bond of Discipline, giving all of our creatures lifelink at turn 5 at sorcery speed. Not something I'm really interested in. Confronting the assault. We're playing green. Creatures really should not be an issue here. And the spirits, while they do have flying, don't have lifelink. So ultimately this is a cut 9 times out of 10. Angelic Reward, an aura, 3/3. It gives a creature flying. Not good enough for 5 mana in this deck. Sarah Angel, Flying Vigilance, no lifelink, no contribution on that theme. We are going to say no. Spirit Guardian, a 3/4 for 5 that incidentally gets us 4 life. We have better ways of gaining life in this deck, so I am going to say no. Sentinel Spider, Vigilance and Reach at a 4/4 for 5. This has a possibility of making the cut, so we are going to leave it there for the time being. Now let's take a look at this top end stuff. A Telegraphed Combat Trick, a 5/5 flying for 6. We are going to say no to this. It's just too expensive. Inspiring Commander is trying to let us draw cards, but again, a 6 mana, this is too little too late. If we're looking at this to save us, it's not going to get there in time, so we are going to go ahead and cut that. Affectionate Intrigue, there is no life gain contribution here, and a 4/4 for 6 with a fight. This is the case for keeping Rabid Bite, because Rabid Bite at 2 mana is just so much more versatile than something like this. Gonna go ahead and cut it. Epic Proportions, a combat trick, 5/5 and trample for 6 mana. Now, if this was a plus, well, something less than 5 and lesser mana, I would keep it, but it's just too much mana. We're not going to get there. Gorgon Ceratops, Double Strike, 3/3 for 7 mana. No, thank you. Rampaging Baloth, a 7/7 trample. Whenever it attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each land you control. This is an absolute bomb, but really, this is 7 mana. In mono green, yeah, I might run this as a top end, but right here, I think there's other things we would rather be doing. 7 mana when we can play Froghemoth for 5, we can play Drizzt for 5. This is just not going to make the cut, ladies and gentlemen. So there we go. There's our new player collection whittled down. We are down to 32 cards on the cut. Let's continue the conversation about the top end items here. God's Guardian, a 3/6 with Vigilance and a Foretell. Nope. I don't even know what else to say about that. A 6 mana 3/3 flying, and it brings something back to the battlefield. It's not a bad card, but it's not what we're looking for here. So we are going to go ahead and cut that. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain 4 or more life this turn, create a 4/4 angel creature token with flying and vigilance. That is pretty solidly on brand, even at 6 mana. This is the kind of stuff we want to be doing in that late game that just ties into our synergy so strongly. If we can stick this card, we will win the game. Let's see here. Vorinclex, he's all about +1/+1 counters, and that's just not what we're trying to do here. So we're going to cut the Mythic, just like that. Bookworm, a 8 mana 7/7 with trample, gain 3 life. Not what I'm looking to do at 8 mana. Just really not. Gonna cut that out. Pillar Rescuer, this is another one of those save something from the graveyard cards. The 2/2 flyer for 5 mana if you don't have a valid target in your graveyard. Not good enough, guys. Just really not. Makinda Stampede, this is a nice overrun effect, even at sorcery, and it's a land. So we are going to keep that, but I am going to go in and cut a Plains in place of that card. Ashaya, number of forests. Yeah, I am not interested in this card for this deck. We definitely do some powerful things with this, but I don't think this is the place to do it. We're cutting another Mythic. Froghemoth we have talked about being just good enough for this deck. Owlbear, on the other hand, is a cantrip, 5 mana for a 4/4 trample. I think we have better answers in this deck, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that. Sentinel Spider, are we weak enough to flying that we're considering this? I am going to leave this on the table for the time being. It's probably going to get cut in the end, but for the moment, we'll keep it. Halavar, now there is a mythic we can get behind. Not only is it a indestructible god, is he indestructible? No, not all gods are indestructible, just some of them. Creatures you control that are enchanted or equipped have double strike. Okay, we're not running a lot of that theme. At the beginning of each combat, you may attach an aura or equipment, also not doing much for us. But the Sword of the Realms, a 2 mana, +2 vigilance, whenever a equipped creature dies, return it to its owner's hand. This is why we play this card, the Sword. We're not playing Halavar, but we will play the Sword there. Icing Death, a 4/3 flyer for 4 flying vigilance that creates an equipment when it dies. This is another one of those mythics I can get behind. It is basically baked in card advantage. So we will keep this, and I think this kind of puts the last nail in the coffin for something like Sentinel Spider. A flyer like Icing Death makes a blocker like Sentinel Spider obsolete, so we will go ahead and cut the Spider. Leon and War Leader, I think we're going to keep in the conversation for the time being. Starhelm makes a bunch of angels, flying in vigilance. This is another mythic that, while it's very powerful and a good card, doesn't fit the synergy of this deck, and this deck is going to live and die by its synergy. So we're going to go ahead and cut that. Accomplished Alchemist, 4 mana ramp. It is Lifegain centric, so this might help us double spell somewhere, and it's a really good blocker. So I think we do keep this for the time being. Spirit Aldergard. This is pretty good on the snow permanent aspect, only because of our lands. So making a 4/4 for 4 that potentially gets better is really good board presence. I think I like this. Struggle we've talked about. This is a solid maybe still. I'm not ready to cut this yet. Toski. Let's see here. It is card draw. It's a 4/4 for 1. It's indestructible. This creates a lot of problems, particularly if we're able to add something like Sword of the Realms or the +2 tap target creature on the attack step, Icing Death. That is a strong possibility. I think it's something we keep for the moment. Master Symmetrist. I don't know. Is this a card we want? Are our cards going to have the equal? I'd say most of them actually are going to have the same power and toughness. Lotus Cobra won't. That might be something that we cut though. Yeah, I'd say Master Symmetrist is something we keep at this point. We still have 22 cards to cut, so this might be something that gets dropped in the end. But for now, I think it makes the conversation. You meet in a tavern. Look at your top 5 cards. You reveal any number of creature cards from among them and put them into your hand. So it's a potential draw 5 for 4 mana. Or start a brawl. I think this is why we really want this, is the overrun effect. Even at sorcery speed, giving all of our team +2/+2 is potentially very game breaking in this deck, especially when we have so many creatures that might be difficult to deal with. But I do think that is a strong enough case for us to cut the oh god, I just looked at it and I cut it. So roll the video back and see what card I cut. but it's the one from the mono white deck that requires a blocking or blocked as a combat trick. So that cuts our top end pretty considerably. We're down to 21 cards though that still need to be cut. So let's look at some of the tribal incidental stuff going on here. Kite Sail Cleric, a 1/1 flyer for 1. We said Ranger's Hawk was good enough, so is this, or has our argument for Ranger's Hawk broken down here? Kicking this, tapping 2 creatures as a combat trick. Yes, I think this is good enough, even though it's a cleric and won't synergize. Hollow Priest we've talked about. Orator we've talked about. Luminarch Aspirant we have talked about, and I still think it's worth keeping. Storyteller is totally on brand for this deck as a 2/2 lifelink. We will keep that. Elite Spellbinder is just really good premium. I want to call this removal, even though it's not really removal, but still very, very good. Core Celebrant is another Impassioned Orator, and it blocks even better. I think we keep it. Righteous Valkyrie is only really strong if you have Angels and Clerics in the deck. We do have a good number of Clerics, so maybe. As long as you have at least 7 more than your starting life total, which in Brawl is going to be 25. Creatures you control get +2/+2. Yes, this is definitely good enough. It's corner case, but when it works, it will work. And a 3 mana 2/4 flyer, if it does nothing else, it's good enough. And Valkyrie Harbinger we have talked about. So let's transition our cleric conversation to angels, and we have talked about all of these angels already, so no need to rehash that. So let's look at our mid-range. As you can see, we are very heavy here in our 2-drops. So let's see what there we might can talk about getting rid of. Shield Mate is card advantage, but it's a warrior. So it's not hitting any of our tribal synergies that we care about. And a 2/1 for 2, even though it's creating a second body, is really not good enough to be one of our 21 cards that we don't cut. Dancing Sword, on the other hand, is good enough. Hollow Priest, Impassioned Orator, Blade Master. We do have quite a bit of equipped creatures, so I think this makes the conversation for the moment. Luminarch is still making the pass. Pacifism is solid removal here, because really in a deck like this, we don't have to actually destroy the creature. We just have to take it out of the combat scenario. So I believe that is good enough. Revitalize is a life gain and a card draw. It's on brand. I think it's good enough. Rune of Sustenance is not there. Honestly, most of our creatures that we want to have lifelink already do. Although this does draw a card. So it cantrips. Yeah, I think we will keep this for the moment. Story Seeker is on brand and a keepy. Thunderous Orator, a 2/2 for 2. And it gains a bunch of stuff. It's a wizard, not a cleric or an angel. I think this is a cut, just because we are still looking to cut 19 cards. Bull Strength, what we really need in this deck from time to time is the ability to give one of our ridiculous creatures trample to end the game. Bull Strength does that. Devouring Tendrils, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power, so it's a fight spell. When the permanent you control dies this turn, when the permanent you don't control, easy for me to say, you gain 2 life. So that is a pretty nice little trick there for this deck. We are going to keep that. Inscription, we have talked about. Lotus Cobra is not making the cut here, boys and girls. Prosperous Innkeeper is just too good in this deck to even consider. Rabid Bite is still making the cut as removal. Ranger class, solid. A Sculptor of Winter. I think this is gone. I really do. We're going to go ahead and cut that. Werewolf Pack Leader. This is just so solid. It can do so much for us. So This is another one of those, if you're playing green, I'm not sure why. We probably won't play this on curve, because I think we're going to end up being more of a white deck than we are green. But really, a turn 3 or turn 4 pack leader is still super relevant. Arcane Signet is very strong as mana creation, so we are going to keep that, but I am going to cut a forest for it just to make some room here. So we are now down to 16 cards. So let's take a look at some of these we have talked about. Let's see here. Where is our... okay, Minimus Containment. That is a worse pacifism because it gives them a treasure. I'm going to go ahead and cut that. Nadar, I think, still makes the cut. Apparition is strong enough that it makes the cut. Choose your weapon. Lets us deal with flying. And I think that's a reason to keep it here. Lurking Roper. Even though this is a life gain, and, well, it's a 4/5 for 3. Okay, we're going to keep that. Scale the Heights we've talked about. Kazandu Mammoth. I don't think Landfall is going to be relevant enough in this deck, although it is also a land. So we're going to keep that and cut a forest in place of it. Could be a horrible mistake, but that gets us down to 4 cards. Let's take a look here. Resolute Strike. We do not have enough value in our warriors to make that stick. So I think that is something we have to cut here. Let's see here. Anything else jumping out at me? Expel, I think, is just not quite good enough for us. Celebrant Maul is definitely a windmill slam. That is something we want in this deck. Let's see here. So yeah, that's all of our, I think, low level cuts here. Blizzard Brawl. I think this is a strong enough case just to run the snow base just for this. I really do. Ochre Jelly is not looking as strong here, especially with 12 cards yet to cut. It's a fantastic card, but it just doesn't synergize with our life gain quite enough. So I am going to go ahead and cut that. Alright, so fresh off of a little break, got some coffee, got some breakfast, and really had to think about these last 11 cuts. You see, at this point, we've eliminated everything that's crap, everything that doesn't fit the theme, and now we're down to brass tacks for these last 10, 15, 20% when we're making cuts here, because we're cutting good cards. And it really comes down to cutting the stuff that makes the least amount of sense for this deck. So I went off camera to give a little thought on this and make sure we get it right. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to cut the Kitesail Cleric and the Ranger's Hawk because they just don't fit the theme. And even though they are 1-drop flyers, it's just not doing anything for us as far as synergizing with the rest of the deck. Next up, we're cutting the Blade Master because equipped warriors you control have double strike, and while we are running a lot of equipment, we are not running a lot of warriors, so it's a good card, but it's just out. Similarly, we are cutting a Luminarch Aspirant. It is a extremely powerful card, but it does not synergize with the life gain mechanic that we are focusing on in this deck. Revitalize and Rune of Sustenance, even though they are cantrips and allow us to draw cards and synergize, it's just not strong enough for us to keep it in the deck. So let me see here. That is, I believe, 5 cards. No, that was 6 cards. So we are down to 5. What else were we cutting here? We are cutting Struggle for Skemfar. We are cutting Toski, and we are casting Master Symmetrist. All very good cards, just not quite strong enough for us to keep them in the deck. And let me see here. What else were we doing on this? Nadar is a cut. I do like him. I think he's an extremely powerful card, but it is just not doing quite enough for us to keep it in the deck. And last, and arguably least, Lurking Roper. It's just a little too conditional. I think we have better cards to run here. So we are making the cut. So there it is, guys. There is our 60-card Brawl deck built around our Lifegain. And just before we go in here, I am going to check the land configuration and see what they're trying to do here. So they want us to be 10-10, and I am just not really feeling that. So I think we're just gonna undo the exact changes that they made here and cut those back out. So yet again, there's our deck, boys and girls. I think this is the strongest build that we can put together using only our new player experience collection. Now, of course, let me point out what I consider to be an obvious fact, but your collection, even this early on in the year, is not just the new player experience. You have opened some packs, you have done some drafts, you have added cards to your collection that I know nothing about. So this deck is your starting point. And you have seen how we go through and evaluate cards, how we look and build upon synergies. So if you have other cards in your individual collection that fit in this deck, make some changes, okay? This list that I'm publishing is a starting point, not the end-all, be-all for the event. Look at your collection, look at this starting point, and go from there.
Wait, what's that? You didn't catch all that? Well, Matt wants you to know the links are in the doobly-doo. And of course, an event like Midweek Magic is all about those 2 free, rare, possibly upgraded ICRs. There is no cost to playing other than your time, and this is an event that you should definitely be getting involved with every single week. And while I'm not a particular chaser of cosmetic items, when you do take part in this event, if you have the option, link up with your local game store and get a redemption code for 2 free cosmetic upgrades for your collection. Not real cards, but cosmetics can be fun. And of course, if you are a player of physical Magic, be sure to partner up with your friendly local game store whenever possible, because as far as I know, Walmart, Target, and Amazon does not provide space and community for Magic players. And with all that having been said, please take this opportunity to like, comment, and subscribe. It is the budget way to support this budget channel because it doesn't cost you a thing. Do it for Graham. Do it for the algorithm. Do it for the iced coffee. And until next time, I'll see you in the arena.